So I recently went on a trip to New York, and before I got there, I was like in a New York state of mind. And then I got there, and I was like, New York, New York. And then I was walking down the street. You would never guess what street it was. Go ahead and guess. You got it. I was like, Broadway, da 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 da, Broadway. And then I came up another street, and it was Sesame Street. Then I came up on a hotel, and it was called the Wellington. And I was like, oh, there's a book about that. Yep, it's called Sister Carrie by Theodore Dreiser from the 1800s, or about a time in the 1800s. I don't know when he wrote it. But at that time, like, the Wellington was the place to be. It was like where the wealthiest of wealthy stayed and lived. But when I was there, it had been condemned for asbestos, and it looked like it needed torn down. Yeah. Also, I was passing some statues, like in the middle of a circle of roads where they all met in a circle, and I was thinking, Pulitzer and Hearst, they think they got us. Do they got us? No! We'll do what we gotta do until we break the will of Mighty Bill and Joe. And the world will know, and the journal too. Mr. Pulitzer, have we got news for you? And they gave their word, but it ain't worth beans. Time to know what putting on the pressure really means. Anyway, so I was totally singing the Newsies the whole time as I was walking around town. And then I went to Central Park. I really think I passed Will Ferrell jogging in Central Park, and Sam I Am from Frodo's friend from The Lord of the Rings. But like, how do you know? I mean, unless you just kind of accost them and say, hey, are you that person? And I wanted to respect the fact that they were just going for a jog, and I was going for a jog too. So I did it. But as I was running and walking through Central Park, I just kept thinking, how do you know he loves you? How do you know he cares? From Enchanted. And then I got to this rocky place with these rocks over here and these rocks over here, and I was like, this would be a great place for a snowball fight, like from that movie Elf. And I also just kept thinking of the Central Park Rangers. And I did pass some NYPD cops on horses. So maybe they were the Central Park Rangers from Elf. You never know. In Central Park, I was also thinking of 101 Dalmatians. And there's a book about that too, right? It's not just a movie, it's also a book. And how Pongo and Purdy let their pets meet in Central Park. And how can we forget, hello, Dolly, well, hello, Dolly, it's so nice to have you back where you belong. You're looking swell, Dolly, we can tell. Dolly, you're still glowing, you're still growing, you're still going strong. And then I saw a homeless man, and I was thinking, New York City, center of the universe. Times aren't pretty, but I'm pretty sure they can't get worse. It's a comfort to know when you're singing the Hit the Road Blues that anywhere else you could possibly go after New York would be a pleasure cruise. And then I heard someone say that they met Paul McCartney, and as I was walking down the street with all these people who were also walking down the street by themselves, and even as I ate ice cream by myself in this fancy ice cream place, I was next to a guy that was eating ice cream by himself, and next to another guy that was eating ice cream by themselves, which, like, if that happened in the country where I'm from, people would look at you as weird. But there it was totally normal. And so, of course, I was thinking, all the lonely people, where do they all come from? Oh my goodness. And the biggest surprise I had in New York City was visiting the New York City Library. They have a whole classics room, which I actually forgot to go in because I didn't know it was there, but someone told me about it afterward, so I'm gonna have to go back. But it has like the original Winnie the Pooh sketches, like there's a book about that, right? Winnie the Pooh, and stuffed animals, and all like the children's book stuff. So neat. But also I did go upstairs, and there was like a portrait room with different owners and bigwigs who had helped the library be something. And one of them was Mary Shelley's father-in-law. You know, there's a book by her, right? It's called like Frankenstein. Yeah. And then also, once I got upstairs, I was just in awe because there are these floor-to-ceiling paintings that are like 6 stories high or maybe more. And one, like you can clearly tell, it's Moses coming down with the 10 Commandments. And I'm like, there's a book about that, right? It's called Exodus in the Bible. And then there's another painting that I'm pretty sure is about Martin Luther, but I guess I didn't research it to make sure. I'm sure there's more there, but those were the highlights. Oh, and then I went to a bookstore in New York City, which I feel like those are pretty unique, you know? Like, when was the last time you went to a bookstore? Like, we just don't have very many of those anymore. But I went to one, and they had a whole area that was devoted to children's books about New York City. Like, Goodnight, New York, New York, New York. Probably at least 15 or so children's books about New York. I also saw a musical, The Great Gatsby, and there's a book about that. It's called The Great Gatsby. I read it. There was also a musical called The Outsiders. Phenomenal. And there's a book about that. I didn't know there was a book about that, but I'm definitely going to read it now. In The Outsiders musical, you really need to see it. It's like a cross between Oklahoma, West Side Story, and The Newsies. So good. And I've been singing the songs ever since. I have just touched the surface of what I thought reminded me of New York, but I mean, it's the center of creativity, right? With like Fashion Week, musicals, movies, songs. Like there's a lot going on there. Until next time, there's a book about that.